Hi! I just got back from seeing Christopher Nolan's latest film, Interstellar, and I have to be honest, the biggest draw was the name Christopher Nolan. I hadn't seen any trailers, I'd seen posters, but I had no idea what I was in for, and I must say, it was not surprising because every Christopher Nolan movie I've ever seen has delivered, from Memento to The Prestige to the Batman trilogy to Inception. This one was no exception. You figured he has to fail sometimes, but this one I was also quite pleased with. I just got off the subway. I saw it with a few mates, and I took a few notes on my cell phone. I just want to get my thoughts out there quickly, and I'll try to do it without any spoilers. First of all, you shouldn't be surprised that the film is long. But what's weird is that when Christopher Nolan movies are long, they don't feel like you're just trudging through it. It actually goes by at a pretty good clip because you're enjoying it that much. I live in China, and I don't know if this is a China thing or if this is a 2014 thing, but every time I see a movie lately, people are taking out their cell phones and playing Crazy Cupcakes or something that's really distracting. What I found is that nobody. I was way in the back. I bought my tickets late, and in China you actually get assigned seats for your movie viewing. I found that nobody was looking at their phone, at least for the first hour. I was so surprised. Usually I have to walk up to somebody and say, "Can you shut your phone off? It's distracting me." And these people were rapt with attention, which is quite remarkable because it's not an action movie for the most part. People are having long conversations, long, profound conversations. And that is quite surprising. There were no big robot wars, no intergalactic space dogfights, and yet people were rapt with attention. So that is a good sign. And what else is about this movie that makes it so enjoyable is that I feel like most of the sci-fi movies that I've seen in the last couple of years in the theaters have really not been like that. Even the new Star Trek movies, there's not a lot of talking. It's mostly action. And here, I felt like I was going back to ambitious, hopeful sci-fi. And it reminded me in some ways of the movies I've liked in the last 10 years, like Sunshine, that was done by Danny Boyle. There was a lot of parallels to be made with Sunshine. Maybe Moon, which was Sam Rockwell. I don't know who directed Moon, but it starred Sam Rockwell. It was considered like an indie sci-fi movie. If you haven't seen Moon, check that out. I even liked Safety Not Guaranteed because it was, again, a sci-fi movie that dealt with the human element rather than the special effect element. Now, it's not to say this is soft sci-fi. There is some hardcore sci-fi elements in this movie. I think it was educational in some ways. The idea that gravity is impervious to space-time, I thought that was a pretty interesting idea. But I'm not going to try to give you the plot. I want to give you the general feel. Now, I liked it more than my mates did. I'm American, and they're English, and maybe that had something to do with it. I'll give you an example. This movie had baseball, a good amount of baseball, and cornfields, and actually had some flashbacks. Baseball and cornfields. I had a few flashbacks of another movie, which you probably have guessed by now. Even has like a Field of Dreams feel, not just because of the baseball and the cornfields, but because of that. The connection, the strong family bonds that exist in this movie. Let's see what else I wanted to talk about. I wrote this a few minutes ago. I just got off the subway. One minor spoiler, it's not really a spoiler because it happens early in the film, is the daughter is in trouble with the teachers and the principal of her high school. The daughter played by Matthew McConaughey's character has a daughter who gets in trouble because she's using a outlawed textbook in her high school that mentions the moon landing as being a genuine historical fact. And in this new semi-dystopian future, it's actually, the curriculum is being rewritten. Sorry, there's some schmutz on my computer. Let me get rid of that. Yeah, schmutz. The curriculum's been rewritten so that the moon landing is actually seen as a propaganda piece that was made to put pressure on the Soviets to waste their money on the space program. And I like that because I have to say that that's something that actually really concerns me. I spend hours on YouTube watching moon hoax videos, and I watch it as sort of like a way to entertain myself, but also to see why the thinking in our time is so cynical. And I must say, I think we live in one of the most cynical, darkest ages in history. Now, of course, I'm only, 37? 37 years old, so I don't have a full grasp of history, experientially speaking, but I really feel that we live in a very cynical age, and it's amazing. If you go to these YouTube videos about hoax landings, and even things like loose change and 9/11 and black helicopter type stuff, and prepper YouTube videos, you realize that if you look at the number of hits, many more hits than you'll find on a video like this, it's quite stark how people don't trust anything. We don't trust anybody. Morale is at an all-time low, in my opinion, in regards to things to believe in. And this movie had a character and a daughter who believed in the space program, in NASA. And we know at this point in history, NASA is not at its strongest. So that really made me happy that we saw a hopeful sci-fi movie, one that addressed cynicism but dispelled it at the same time. It is an epidemic and perhaps a pandemic that people don't believe in looking forward anymore. I had actually a few bars of Billy Bragg's song. I don't know if you know Billy Bragg. He's this socialist musician from England. I'm not a socialist or a communist, but I love his music because it's very lyrically intelligent. And there's a Billy Bragg song called "The Space Race Is Over," and it's pretty much a eulogy for the notion of dreaming, of looking to space as a frontier, of a place of hope, a place of discovery and wonder. And I don't really feel that that's true anymore. A lot of our sci-fi is increasingly dark and increasingly, again, to use that word, cynical. And this tried to address it face on. Matthew McConaughey has had a rebirth of sorts. You know, he's made some romantic comedies, and of course, with that show, what's that new show? True Detective, yeah. He's been made a star again, and I'm glad about it because when I saw Contact in the late '90s, I also thought that had very similar themes and hope that this movie had. Now, people were critical of Contact because they had read the book before, but it was a way to access those ideas without sitting through Carl Sagan's book, and most people, let's be honest, don't have the patience to read through Sagan's work. So I liked I thought Contact was a great movie back in the '90s. I remember lifeguarding. I was a lifeguard at a pool, and there were these two really loud, obnoxious women in bikinis who were quite overweight. Not that that matters, but it just sticks in my mind. That were just like, Contact was terrible. Nothing happened. Yeah, it was so boring. And when I heard them talk about it at the pool, it actually made me like it more because the more obnoxious they were, the more it confirmed my faith that this was a movie that was probably good. But Contact is similar in that it raises, not just Matthew McConaughey being in both, but I think it raised a lot of the questions that this movie tries to address, namely, what is the nature of love? One of the best lines of Contact is when Matthew McConaughey's character, who's a priest, is challenging Jodie Foster's atheism and said, do you love your father? And she said, yes, of course I love my father. And he said, well, prove it. Thus taking her empirically minded philosophy and turning it around on her. So essentially trying to challenge her into faith. And I thought that was quite a nice line. And there are some lines, especially delivered by the Anne Hathaway's character, Brand, that mirror that very nicely. So actually, in a way, it feels like almost like a companion piece to Contact. Again, spoiler-free, the ending, my mates were somewhat critical of. The ending doesn't matter. Just forget the ending. The fact that we actually have a movie where people are actually having these types of conversations is what matters. Who cares what happens at the end? I won't tell you if it's positive or negative. All I'll say is that it's a movie that we need to emulate, and we need to try to create more sci-fi. I'm not making sci-fi movies, but I'm hoping that young filmmakers and writers and people see this as a way to say, hey, we used to be dreamers, let's be dreamers again. It's a good direction. I was very happy with Gravity last year for its attempt to be true to space, try to render space in a very silent atmosphere. and this does similar stuff like that. There's no noise in space. Even during exciting moments where noise will ramp up the tension, it's a very quiet space. So I think this movie also, I don't know if it took a lesson from Gravity, but it does the same type of thing that Gravity does. We're trying to be a true representation, at least early on, of what space exploration might be like. So very good movie. I don't think I've ruined anything here. I like the robots. The robots were like clunky throwbacks to old sci-fi. They make Robbie the robot from Forbidden Planet look almost like versatile. But what's remarkable is they're clunky robots, but they actually wind up being surprisingly agile. So there's a lot of old sci-fi throwback feel to this movie. What else? I just deleted my notes. Great. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say. It's a movie that relies on ideas rather than action, but there is enough action to keep you satisfied. And I'm amazed that people actually were that attuned. I mean, how many movies have we seen? Oh, we're low on fuel or oxygen or this or this, it's not that exciting. I mean, look at a movie like Marooned, starring like Gene Hackman or what was it? Gene Hackman and Gregory Peck from the late '60s. That was a survival in space story that was dull. I mean, to actually make a survival in space story exciting with not much happening in terms of like antagonists and things like that is quite a testament to Christopher Nolan's powerful filmmaking abilities. Man, I'm so happy right now. I should probably take my coat off and take my scarf off and get some proper sleep. But see it. If you haven't, you probably beat me to it. I was late to the game, but good. Good.